watching the AT&T U-verse Bracket Preview Show with Steve Overmeyer and John Rothstein.
Well, the South region is full of scorers, but who will survive? Steve Overmeyer alongside CBS College basketball insider John Rothstein. This is the AT&T U-verse Bracket Preview Show. John, let's start things off with Duke. Do they have the easiest path of all the number ones?
I don't think it's close, Steve. I think the Blue Devils right now have a clear path to the Elite Eight, and you really look at Duke right now. I think their biggest speed bump to getting to that regional final could be a round of 32 matchup with San Diego State. I don't really believe that the Aztecs can score the ball well enough to give the Blue Devils fits, but defensively, San Diego State really as good as anybody in college basketball.
Yeah, the Blue Devils, though, are playing better than maybe any team in the nation coming down the stretch, at least in this final month. But San Diego State, this is an interesting matchup here with St. John's. The Aztecs have the size. St. John's has the speed. How do you see that matchup playing out?
Well, here's the thing that I have known from spending some time with San Diego State staff over the years. San Diego State, from 1 through 4 on the court, point guard through power forward, does not put labels on positions because every player on their team is between 6'3" and 6'8" and can switch every ball screen defensively and really is an interchangeable part. So St. John's normally could have an advantage by being smaller and quicker and having the ability to go around defenses. They won't have that advantage against San Diego State.
Yeah, and they won't have their shot blocker, Chris Obebka, as well. But everybody loves the 5-12 upsets. Stephen F. Austin is going to be the trendy pick this year. Should they be?
Absolutely. Stephen F. Austin beat VCU in last year's NCAA tournament. Their most talented player is a crafty 6'4" guard named Thomas Walkup, who is kind of the Swiss Army knife of the Southland Conference because he does a little bit of everything. He can rebound, he can score, he can distribute. And you want to talk about depth in this game. Stephen F. Austin, with 10 players on its roster, averaging 9.5 minutes or more.
You like Georgetown before the tournament as a bracket breaker.
How does that look now after they lost in the Big East tournament to Xavier? Not too good.
What do you think now? Has your mentality, has your opinion of Georgetown changed?
Georgetown, to me, right now looks like a mercurial team. I still believe that the Hoyas, based on what they've shown earlier this season, have the requisites to compete with the best teams in the country. You have to remember, Georgetown on a neutral court was close against Wisconsin. Georgetown was close at home against Kansas, and the Hoyas also blew out Villanova by 20 points. Now, Georgetown has all the requisites, like I said, to be a tough out in the NCAA tournament. They have a scorer in Devonta Smith-Rivera from the perimeter. They have a low post option in Josh Smith, and they have the ability to be really good defensively. The issue is they're taking on a dangerous team in Eastern Washington. 1-2 punch for Eastern Washington is really strong. Tyler Harvey on the outside, and Venky Joyce, a 6'8" forward on the interior. So another dangerous first-round matchup for the Hoyas, who, get this, have not reached the second weekend of the NCAA tournament since Jeff Green and Roy Hibbert went to the Final Four in 2007. It's 8 years, Steve.
Yeah, in the Big East. I mean, they were early exits last year in the tournament, and I think a lot of people are wondering just how good the Big East really is. Villanova got a number one seed. Georgetown, Providence, St. John's, all right there as well. But how good is the Big East, and are we going to find that out here in the tournament?
Well, I think one thing to remember during last year's NCAA tournament, the Big East did not have one team in the Sweet 16 during last year's bracket, and I think that will change to a degree this season potentially. But Villanova, like we talked about, is going to have to take on a difficult team in the round of 32, and Georgetown and Providence don't have smooth sailing rides either.
All right, well, when we come back, I'm going to ask you if you agree with the Gonzaga coach regarding the caliber of his team. You're watching the AT&T U-verse Bracket Preview Show.
The AT&T U-verse Bracket Preview Show is sponsored by AT&T U-verse. The U-verse revolves around you. Call 1-800-PICK-ATT.
All right, listen up. We still got a lot of game. Keep the energy up. We need that effort. I'm chip at a time and chip away. They're not that good.
Come on, concentrate. Play your own game. Block everything.
Win this thing. Pick it up. Get on it. You got 3 minutes. We're going to run. We can shut them down.
Dad, just pick one already.
When you have this many channels with your favorite sports, the U-verse revolves around you.
And welcome back to the AT&T U-verse Bracket Preview Show. Steve Overmeyer, John Rothstein. We're kind of filling out the brackets right now. And you liked LSU, or I should say SMU's, Larry Brown and the Mustangs before the tournament Do you still feel the same way about them right now?
I think SMU is a nightmare-type matchup for a lot of teams because you're not going to get a team that's more fundamentally sound on offense and more locked in on defense than SMU. The Ponies don't turn the ball over, and they only work for high-percentage shots. I also think that SMU is a throwback because they play with two traditional big men, Marcus Kennedy, Yannick Moreira, and Cannon Cunningham. But with all that said, Iowa State presents a problem for the Ponies in the round of 32. That will be interesting. Now, another thing to keep in mind in that region right there, Iowa and Davidson has a chance to be one of the better games in the round of 64. Great contrast in styles.
Well, let's go back to Iowa State because they have a player who is an absolute matchup nightmare. Is that something that will help them get to the second weekend?
I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, when you look at George Niang right now, he is kind of the Boris Diaw of college basketball, and Fred Hoiberg has played him at point guard. He's played him at center. He's as versatile a player as there is in our game.
A Boris Diaw reference.
Why not?
Diving into the versatile NBA players there. Now, speaking of NBA players, Davidson once gave us Steph Curry. Can they put out a shocking effort like they did when Curry was on this squad?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that this is one of Bob McKillop's best coaching jobs. I mean, Bob McKillop took a team that was recruited to play in the Southern Conference, and he led Davidson to an Atlantic 10 regular season title. The thing you love about Davidson, an unbelievable three-point shooting team. As a team, they shoot just under 40% from three-point range. Another thing to love about Davidson, they play with three-point guards. Jack Gibbs, Tyler Kalinowski, and Brian Sullivan, so you know they're not turning the ball over. And
we know how you feel about point guards in the tournament. It's the key cog to any championship run, isn't it?
The gas in the engine.
It's the gas in the engine. All right, Gonzaga coach Mark Few earlier this week said that he feels like this is his best team in his 16 years there. He's had some pretty good teams. Are you a believer, though, in the Zags?
Yes, because of Gonzaga's perimeter experience. Kevin Pangos, Gary Bell, and Byron Wesley, the three players who start on the perimeter for Gonzaga, have a combined 13 years of college basketball experience. That's something that could pay major dividends in March.
Really? Where do you see the big surprise coming from the bottom half of that South bracket?
Well, I'm going to go with Iowa State to the Final Four. That is my prediction. That is my prediction. I think Iowa State will play in a national championship game. I think the difference maker this year for Iowa State is Jameel McKay. This is a kid who transferred from Marquette and really for the first time in Fred Hoiberg's tenure at his alma mater has given the Cyclones a legitimate rim protector, a Kenneth Faried type at the rim. So now all of a sudden you're looking up front at Iowa State and you don't see just skill players. You have Jameel McKay next to George Niang, the Boris Diaw of college basketball with the Kenneth Faried of college basketball. That could be a problem for some opponents.
On Sunday night, you filled out your bracket within about 30 seconds of knowing which teams were going where.
Impulses.
Okay, and your ideas have not changed since then, right? Well, you usually stick with your teams?
Well, look, I think you have to go with your gut. When you watch teams as I do, 20 or 30 times, you pretty much know the nuances by now. You have to look for matchups. You have to look for coaches that you trust. And you also kind of have to look at what potentially could happen if a player gets hot and rolling. That's a big reason why I think that Louisville has a chance in the East region to do damage. And look, I'll call a spade a spade. Before the season started, I firmly believe that Montrezl Harrell was going to be National Player of the Year. And in November and December, he looked like
he
that.
Did.
But then we saw some things change at Louisville. Chris Jones left the team, but at the end of the day, they have a Hall of Fame coach. We got Montrezl Harrell. They have Terry Rozier. But as I've said time and time again, and I will continue to say, college basketball is where the unexpected became the ordinary.
Yeah, Harrell at the beginning of the season, he kind of reminded me of Anthony Davis, as he looked like a beast among boys early in the season. What has happened to him?
Well, I think, one thing that's happened is scouting gets better in league play than it does in non-conference schedules because you start to see teams a little bit more. You're more familiar with what they do, so the preparation is obviously better. And one thing you have to look at, too, if you're a dominant low-post scorer like Montrezl Harrell, the one thing you want to benefit from if you're going to get the ball in post-up situations is great shooting because the spacing on offense is going to be better. This might be the worst shooting team that Rick Pitino has had since he's been a head coach. It's almost like if you gave Louisville a handful of quarters and they were on the tip of Montauk, they couldn't get them in the ocean.
Well, the brackets are breaking down right now. Some of them according to plan, and of course, there's always going to be some bracket busters out there. Any surprises you see in this one?
In the East region?
Yeah.
I'm taking NC State. I think NC State's a team that's going to beat Villanova and get to a Sweet 16, and then we will have an all-ACC Sweet 16 game between NC State and Louisville. And what's interesting with that is when you look at the bottom half of the bracket, you could have NC State playing Louisville and then Virginia playing Oklahoma right there. So that would give you 3 of the 4 teams in that region in the Sweet 16 being from the ACC.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see how this all kind of shakes out.
But you know what the great part of it is? Nobody had Connecticut against Kentucky last year.
That's true.
And for the record, last year, Connecticut, is down by 3 with a minute left against St. Joe's. Amita Brima, who was a freshman at the time, gets fouled, makes a layup. He goes to the free throw line as a 35% free throw shooter and makes the free throw to send the game into overtime, which Shabazz Napier took over, and the rest is history. But that happened last year. UConn was down by 3 points with a minute left, and a 35% free throw shooter made a free throw to tie the game.
It's the butterfly effect, man. All it takes is one play to change the course of history.
There's a name for this, madness.
It is. March Madness is here. He is John Rothstein. I'm Steve Overmeyer. You've been watching the AT&T UVerse Bracket Preview Show.
The AT&T UVerse Bracket Preview Show is sponsored by AT&T UVerse. The UVerse revolves around you. Call 1-800-PICK-ATT.
You have got to be kidding me!
Unbelievable.
The greatest upset in NCAA March Madness history. Who could have predicted this?
Never miss a moment with UVerse Live TV on the go.